Alright guys, so just welcome here. I'm basically going to be showing you guys or explaining throughout these videos how to actually make your own little potting mix. It's very simple, but I'm going to go through what each individual thing also does for you. Because I actually hear some people talk about getting perlite and vermiculite. I had an instance where I used vermiculite in this kind of mix and it didn't work. And there's a good reason for it. It took me a while to actually figure it out, but nonetheless, let me get into it. So, as you know now, currently, you've got a bucket. I'm using half a bucket. I've done everything for buckets now. So it's half a bucket of perlite. Now, the difference between perlite and vermiculite. Perlite actually allows water to drain. Vermiculite kind of holds it and absorbs it. So it becomes this thick mass. And it's normally, I'd say, useful in a sense where you're going to be watering once a week or something like that, and you want water to be retained. I would use vermiculite, but because I'm making basically a potting mix as well as this will be a use for self-wicking mix, I go with perlite because I know it drains, it fluffs it up, and I don't actually have any problems of the plants or the roots, shall we say, getting stuck in a very massed quantity of vermiculite and not allowing them to kind of move around and get to the bottom. So half a bucket of perlite. Now here I've got my own homemade compost mixed with some sand, and this is a bigger size bucket, so I'd say this is one full bucket of sand and compost. And basically how we made it was quite simply, we just took all our scraps, cut them up as small as we could, and threw it into one big bucket. And I can actually show you a dustbin. So I throw it into these kind of things. Just your typical dustbin. Whatever big size that you have, it's bigger the better, because you can actually make more quicker too. And then what you do is you normally drill holes in the bottom and you throw in your sand to start it off with. You can put stones in the bottom if you want to actually allow it to drain faster, but it's not really important. You put your little bit of sand and you put your mass amount of scraps. Okay. And you then throw sand on top of it. You leave it for a day or two. You can scratch it up using a fork as well as to break it down a bit more. And then basically all you're doing is consistently turning it per week. You don't want to turn it too much because it needs to produce heat in order to actually decompose. And if you consistently turn it, you're not creating that heat, and the decomposing side won't effectively work fast enough. So you'll be waiting a longer time than you actually need. So that's a sand and compost mix. And then I've got my peat core. Now this stuff is lovely and light. Okay, it comes in a block. Where I am, I don't know your side, it could be just a bag of it, but here it's a compressed block. Basically what you do is you put, there's normally instructions on it. A block for me, it's one full bucket of water with one block, and it actually fills it up halfway. So this is very light stuff. It's very good, and it actually allows aeration for your sand and perlite as well. So perlite will help you with your drainage and fluff it up a bit, but this stuff will really fluff things up, and it will help with the wicking process too. So it's a very important ingredient for your self-wicking and for just your basic plant potting mix, because it will help allowing the roots to actually expand faster. They'll grow deeper quicker. And another good thing with actually having sand mixed within your fertilizer, it'll keep its natural kind of concept of growing in soil, but it won't be too much because obviously it's a 50-50 mix. Generally what you would do is, if you have compost by itself and sand by itself, I'll do one of one. So one bucket of compost to one bucket of sand. But the sand thing, it's very up to you, because the more sand you put in, the more dense the soil mix becomes, or potting mix becomes. So if you're just starting seedlings, half a bucket should be fine. But if you really want to do long-term growth where you're growing directly in, I would recommend a full bucket 1-to-1 ratio of compost to sand. All right. And when you mix these three up, you'll actually find that it's really, really nice stuff, and it's really light. Your plants will enjoy it. You can put it in a container without holes, but you obviously just need to be aware of how much water you're putting it in, so you don't drown your plant. because what it will do is it will actually wick itself up to the top. So whatever gets used by the sun, by the plant, it'll be restored by the water that's left in the bottom. Excuse me. So it's very nice and it's light. And whenever you use a bucket, you'll think it's heavy, but it's actually lighter than it is. So it's perfect mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the stuff up, and it's quite simple. All you do is you throw it all into one big container. As you can see, I had some residue from the last one, and I'm going to do the mixing in there. So I'm going to do that, and I'll get back to you and I'll show you afterwards. But just the health and safety risk of using perlite. Now, from what I've researched, it's a volcanic ash substance. It looks like stones and heavy, but it is light. Okay, it literally is so light. The thing you must be aware of is when working with this, try not to inhale, or better yet, just wear a mask. Okay, because if this gets into your lungs, there is a real disease that actually can affect your lungs with this kind of stuff. Not many people speak about it, but yeah, you can get some real dangerous stuff happening to your lungs. So I normally do it when the wind is blowing in the opposite direction, and I stand in the direction of the wind behind me so that the fumes or the powders literally blow away. So it's good to note that, because it's really dangerous. Okay, well, let me mix things up and I'll give you guys a shot.